you so much for coming out and talking to our crowd. It's wonderful.
Well, it's good to be here.
And I'm really thankful that you contribute so much to this field and to autism. And what are some of the things that really excite you now? What are you really excited about in your life?
You've asked me such a vague question, I can't answer it.
What excites you about the movie that you just made?
Well, I think it's going to educate a lot of people about autism. It's I really like the way it shows my visual thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It shows all my projects. That's the geek side of me. I like seeing all my projects. But it's also showing autism in a real clinically accurate manner. Mm-hmm. It shows the visual thinking. There's a scene in there where a whole bunch of shoes just come up all at once. It shows anxiety problems. It shows the sensory problems. I think it's going to help educate a lot of people about autism. But it also shows off my work.
Yes.
And I think that's important because we don't have enough emphasis on what these kids are going to do when they grow up. One of the big problems they have in the autism spectrum is at one end of the spectrum, you got somebody who's nonverbal, who's going to need a much lower type of job. And at the other end of the spectrum, they ought to be designing computers and energy systems or doing art or music or some other thing like that. And we're not thinking enough about where they're going to be going. I'm very concerned about the schools taking all the hands-on stuff out of the schools. And so for many kids on the spectrum, those are the classes they're going to excel at. For me, it was art.
You're right, I know. That is so exciting. Our Artism book is going to be coming out really soon, and you're in it, and you have a testimonial on the back.
Well, and I think that showing off the things that we can do. We need to be showing off the good things that people on the autism spectrum can do, like art, music, computer programming, writing, lots of different things.
That's good. What about the future of our kids with autism? We have a book, Autism Tomorrow, that you contributed some wonderful words of wisdom to.
Well, we've got to figure out how to integrate them into the workforce. One of the things that really concerns me is kids aren't being taught enough just social skills like table manners, daily living skills. In the 50s, those things were pounded in. You know, I'm seeing too much of a get kind of a little bit of a handicap mentality where they don't push the kid enough to do things like I've seen verbal 12-year-olds that couldn't go into Tim Hortons and order breakfast and pay for it. That's just ridiculous. I was taught those things at a very young age.
Yeah, you were telling me one time about this little boy who used a fork to comb his hair.
Yeah, and that was, and I told him to get it out of his hair and get it down on his plate where it belongs. I wasn't allowed to comb my hair with my fork.
Or eat the mashed potatoes with your hands.
No, I wasn't allowed to do that either.
Right. I'm tired too.
Talk about Johnny. Especially me.
Right. Okay, we're working on an animated series, and it's based on Jonathan's positive experience playing football. And you know how football equipment could be very hard for kids with sensory problems.
Well, some kids with sensory problems like putting all that equipment on because they like the pressure of it.
I know. You think about Dan Marino and Doug Flutie, both having kids with autism, and they're football players. So I think it's going to be really exciting, and we'd like to have you be part of that. What else did you say?
Talk about Johnny.
Oh yeah, Johnny, yeah. Well, you gave me some really good advice about driving, about getting him out and practicing. Well,
I think on the whole driving thing is because of the problems of multitasking, the driving of the car itself, steering, braking, using the gas, that's got to get on full automatic before someone on the spectrum goes out and does traffic and freeway. I did a year on easy backcountry roads before I did freeway, and I think what you got to do is just get out someplace where you can just drive and spend a lot of hours driving in a place that's completely safe so that you can get to the point where operating the car is automatic. Because when you learn a motor task, when you first start learning how to drive, you got to think about steering, think about the brakes, and that requires the frontal cortex. Then as it becomes automatic, then it migrates back into the motor cortex, and then the driving of the car, you don't have to think about steering anymore. You just do it. And after you get the driving of the car on automatic, then you can start gradually getting into traffic and more difficult driving situations.
So you wouldn't necessarily go with a stick shift?
I actually learned on a stick shift.
Did you really?
Yeah. I learned on an old pickup truck. It had 3 on the column with a very difficult clutch.
Whew,
that's what I learned on.
That is amazing.
Because that's the vehicle my aunt had.
Huh. So what about snow driving? Driving, in awkward situations.
Well, you just you keep your foot off the brake and practice, and I didn't have a problem with that because by the time I was confronted with snow driving, I'd already had a lot of practice.
Do you have any advice for people that with autism or Asperger's that want to date?
Get involved with shared interests, things you both like doing. Where there's been successful marriages, they were both in computers, or they met at a science fiction meeting, or they met doing some kind of shared scientific research, or they liked sewing and they met doing that. That's where there's been some of the best marriages. So get out there and get friends where there's stuff you like to do together.
That's really good feedback.
Any more movie projects?
No more movie projects. What time is it getting to be?
We're almost there. We're almost. We'll wrap up.
I'm curious, Temple, if I may. You're a very visual thinker. When your mind is at rest, Temple, is your mind blank, or do you see?
No, there's always pictures in my mind.
What kind of pictures do you see?
Well, it just depends. Sometimes I kind of replay back stuff I did during the day, kind of doing that now. Other times I can wander off into all kinds of different things.
Well, like 3 images. Are there 3 images maybe in your mind that stand out with just like stunning clarity?
Oh, it can vary a lot. And then what I'm doing too, I tend to think about stuff I've been working on, projects I've been working on really hard. Also, just as I'm going to sleep, especially on design issues, I will figure out the solution to a problem. Just as I go to sleep, the picture will come to me.
Is that relaxing for you, or is it?
Well, sometimes I gotta go up and write it down.
Jot it down on paper.
But the solution will then come to me because I'll be thinking about the problem I was trying to solve, and then, think up the solution to it.
You said something earlier that was really wonderful about autism is a part of who you are, but it's not what you do for a living.
Well,
I thought that was very powerful.
Autism is a very important part of my life, and I was asked years ago if I could snap my fingers, would I make myself not be autistic? No, I would like to just stay the way I am. I like the logical way that I think. But my identity, my first identity is my profession. I'm a professor of animal science. I design cattle handling equipment. I write research papers. I have graduate students. And then autism is secondary. What's concerning me is I'm seeing some really smart kids. You got an 8-year-old or 10-year-old comes up to me at a conference, just wants to tell me about his autism. I'd rather have him tell me about a book he read, or a science project, or that he likes to collect insects. I mean, I get concerned when the autism becomes his fixation. I'd rather have airplanes or trains be his fixation.
Yeah, my dad was aeronautical engineer.
Well,
so
that's right. And if he hadn't gotten fixated on airplanes, he wouldn't have become an aeronautical engineer. It's just that simple.
That's right. So what in the Little Rainman book, what was it about the pictures that you were drawn to?
Well, the picture of the movie reels in the head, that just is how I think. And then the little boxes in the head, sorting the information into categories. It just explained it so well. It was some of the best drawings I've ever seen anywhere. They kind of explain the autistic mind.
Yeah, like raining cats and dogs, that's what's going on.
Yeah, but the cats and dogs are going into boxes.
Into specific boxes.
Into specific boxes in his hat.
That's, very interesting. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You gotta go.
Thank you, Dr. Grandin.
Thank you, Dr.
Very much.